Welcome, everyone. We are on the verge of kicking off the first ever solo match finals of the Kart Rider Drift League. My name is William Cho. Joined by me is State. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. So excited to be here casting the solo match finals of the KDL Preseason 1 tonight. We have an incredible lineup of 8 players. They've been fighting tooth and nail for weeks to reach this stage, and today we're going to crown a champion.
Absolutely. The first ever in the KDL for Kart Rider Drift, and we're kicking it right off with the players taking their spots on the stage since it is the top 8 for the finals here. We will be introducing them one by one for all the fans, not only in the stadium, but of course watching globally. And coming in first seed as the yellow racer, it's going to be HyunSu from Live Sandbox.
Yeah, HyunSu just been absolutely stellar throughout the entire KDL preseason, not only in the solo match portion of the tournament, but in the team match portion of the tournament. One of the favorites probably to walk away with the championship here today. And following him, right behind there is Cool in the black stripes, second seed in here for the solo match. And he's been turning a lot of heads here in KDL. A lot of players have been saying that he's one of those racers that has improved the most in the switch from KL to KDL. And here he is again in the top 8.
Yeah, and I think he's probably, just on paper, statistically one of the most predicted to lift the trophy here out of the remaining 8. But of course, after coming through all the way, starting with the round of 32, any one of these players could win it. And of course, coming up right after Cool in red for that 3rd seed, it's going to be InSoo, and this is his last dance in the solo matches. Of course, he has one more dance tomorrow.
I love the balloons. It really is season 2, Jobra. We got balloons even on our racers.
God. That's why. Yeah, he's celebrating, of course, the new season out in the game right now. These guys still playing on the previous server, but InSoo, here's the thing. This guy has made so many finals in the top 8. He's made so many final 2s, and he has yet to lift the trophy. And before he goes for mandatory military service, today is his last chance to do so.
Yeah, last chance in solo match, and tomorrow is going to be his last chance in team match there for Live Sandbox. Is following him. The white stripes, it's going to be Knock from Team Aura. Aura's lone representative here in the solo match of KDL. Former Kwangdong Freaks player. Just a superb racer here.
Yeah, I mean, Knock, here's the thing, is that he was one of those players that didn't draw as much attention to himself coming up, because here's the thing, you only have to get into the top 4 of each of your matchups in solo match to get to this final 8, and then of course the goal from here on is to get into the top 2 and eventually enter that final 1v1 to lift the trophy. And one man gunning for that, it's going to be NEAL, not a stranger to picking up the trophy as soon as he enters a new league, right? He did it in his homeland. He came to Korea immediately, lifted the trophy again, both in solos and teams at the time. I mean, incredible record so far for NEAL, and I think a lot of global fans hoping that he continues to do that here in Kart Rider Drift.
Yeah, the lone global representative here at the KDL, and coming into today in solo match, holding on to 6 or 7 individual track records as well is just completely phenomenal there for NEAL. And right behind him, it's got to be World. Another player coming in. This one from the Kwangdong Freaks is, Live Sandbox versus the Freaks tomorrow will be the team match finals, but, it almost feels like we're getting a preview of that today. So many Live Sandbox players, so many Freaks players competing here in the top 8 to lift that trophy for the solo match.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, World overall, I think, he has the skill to lift the trophy. No one will be surprised, but he's been a little shaky on and off so far in the solo matches here in the KDL, so we'll see how he's brushed that up here for the final 8. And Ding, one of the other players now not currently on a pro team roster, alongside Knock that we saw earlier on Aura, this time Ding coming in for Reboot. This is his first ever finals, his first ever top 8 finish here in the solo matches. See if he can overcome that pressure.
Yeah, Reboot not having, the best season so far in team match, but for them, Ding has been, kind of a shining beacon in solo match. Coming all the way here as a 7th seed, the runner there for Team Reboot. And JiMin, this guy's also got a special story. I mean, we have so many representatives from Live Sandbox, only Seungha not making it here into the solo match finals. And JiMin actually the item ace for Live Sandbox, which, I mean, a lot of people, they think of item aces as, the shot caller, the play caller, the strategic mastermind behind item mode and team match, but JiMin just showing that he's more than an item ace. He is truly just an ace.
Yes, absolutely. And JiMin, I mean, he's held a couple different positions in the past as well, and I think just trying to take this opportunity to prove himself once again, you know, even though in the team matches, he might be tasked with being that item ace who is there to really carry them through on those second sets of the team matches, but saying, hey, my solo racing skills haven't gone anywhere, right? I mean, we even talked about it before the show, right, of how he had to kind of sub in for those speed modes for a little bit here in the KDL team matches, and now in the Final 8 as well in the solos, I don't think anyone can doubt his just pure racing prowess any longer.
No, and it's going to be a fantastic day of solo racing here, Trevor. I am so excited to get started. And, you know, coming into this, we were talking a little bit before the show began about who we think might be walking away as the champion. And, you know, for me, for my mind, I think it's probably going to be HyunSu or NEAL.
Ooh, okay.
That reaches
kicking
the
it
trophy,
off with the bold
I mean,
statements.
but heart-wise, man, I mean, InSoo, he's so good overall, and this being his last dance here for Live Sandbox before he goes military service, I really want him to do well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would make an incredible story. Of course, he's never lifted the trophy. But let's take a look at the overview as you continue to talk about these candidates. There we have it, the 8 players that have entered the stage. Now, a bit of a change here for the Final 8. It is the first to 80 points. Now, before that, in the round of 16 and 32, it was always first to 50. But since we are in the very last part of the solo matches, we want to make sure that, you know, we give everyone the fair chance to go through all the tracks they want to get those points. And then it's the top 2 going down to a 1v1 ace match to determine who truly is the speediest kart rider here in the KDL.
Yeah, it's a really fun format. I mean, going from 50 points to 80 points means there's more races that we got, and on top of it, that ace match. I mean, ace matches and team match alone have already been so hype throughout the entire KDL preseason, but the fact that we're going to get a 1v1 best of 5 ace between the top 2 racers here in solo speed, it's going to be thrilling.
Yeah, and obviously you had kind of mentioned giving a shout out to HyunSu and NEAL, but of course the story for InSoo and NEAL as well. I mean, I think InSoo and Cool will be really fantastic as well, but we'll take a closer look at each of these players' repertoires. Now, HyunSu coming in as that yellow rider now in Kart Rider, and now obviously in Kart Rider Drift League. Your color is determined by your seeding coming into it. So that's why we kind of highlight that they are the yellow racer, right? That they're coming in with the red stripes, the black stripes, things like that, because that indicates how well they've been performing so far. And we're living in the era of HyunSu. I mean, another way to put it would be that this is HyunSu's world and we're just living in it here in the KDL. And HyunSu's proving it.
It does feel that way, man. He got first overall through a lot of his groups. Is the first seed coming in here overall into the finals. He also is one of those players that's constantly gunning for the first place position at every single match that he enters. He's leading the pack in that regard, only averaging less than half of a second behind first place. Yeah. Across all of these races, just tremendous stuff. Not only consistent in terms of getting top and podium, but also contesting that first place finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a lot of pressure put onto the podium there. And now coming in with the black stripes on his car is, of course, going to be Cool coming in from the Guangdong Freaks. And just look at the number of first place finishes he's had. Yeah. I mean, absolutely incredible. Now, here's the crazy part is we're highlighting how much he's done it, right? And he's had 8 so far. That's only the second most first place finishes because, surprise, surprise, we're going to have a player later that we introduce who's had actually reaped the most first place finishes so far. But, I mean, absolutely just sturdy, reliable racing here from Cool.
Yeah, and second place in round of 32 Group A, first place round of 16 match 1, first place in round of 16 winners match. And winners match, 7 of the 8 players here in the finals competed in that winners match, lone exception being NEAL.
Yeah.
So the fact that Cool has been getting top 2 in every single one of these groups coming into the grand finals here today has to have a lot of people thinking, myself included, that you can't really underestimate this guy. There's a reason that he's wearing the black stripes here coming into the grand finals. It's because he very well might be one of those racers going into the 1v1 ace match at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that, right? If 7 out of the 8 that entered the winners match initially have returned here for the grand finals, it just goes to show that with the double elimination, we can truly prove that, okay, the top of the top really have made it here to the grand finals. Yeah. Obviously, 4 of them in the winners match, including Cool, have moved into the grand finals immediately from that match. And then the other 3 that remained there had to go into the final match with a couple players coming up from the losers bracket. But now it's going to be InSoo. And Here's the thing. InSoo is a player who, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. He's entered the finals, so the top 8 of the solo matches 12 times in his career, prior in KL and Kartrider League. He's gotten to the final 2 5 out of those times, and he still has never lifted the trophy. And that's the crazy thing, is that he looks so good when there are 8 racers on the track, right? Whether it's team or solo matches. And then when it comes down to 1v1, he starts to shake up a little bit.
Yeah, and you would love for him here in his final solo match before going to military service, finally lift that trophy here in the KDL. It would be, almost a Cinderella story, a fairy tale ending here to the KDL preseason if he's able to do it. And he certainly has the skill. I mean, just showing tremendous stuff all the way throughout the preseason. There's a reason why he's here wearing the red stripes. And InSoo, I mean, the Park-Soo duo, Live Sandbox, just top to bottom, so solid. And InSoo might have a very good shot of getting that top 2 yet again.
Yeah, and now this is going to be Knock. I believe some of those stats we're going to have to review a little bit, so we'll cover that. But Knock, I mean, here's the thing. When we talk about that's supposed to say pension meta as well, so a couple typos here on this graphic, but the pension meta, or what we like to call the retirement meta, or for those, kind of the current generation, the daily quest meta, right? So you just go for the bare minimum, and you're just getting into the podium. You're just doing what you're supposed to do, the bare minimum to get in, because you just have to be in the top 4 of each of your rounds to get into the grand finals, and then you can try to show your true colors to get into the top 2.
Yeah, so Knock, his path forward from the beginning of the KDL preseason to get to this point has been not shooting for first place finishes. You only got one of those in all of the solo matches that we've had so far, but instead shooting for podium. If you're not getting podium, get 4th, get 5th, don't get last. And just slowly accumulate those groups in every single round stage. It's why they call him the Super Observer mode.
Yeah, because he's just watching, right? He's just on the sidelines. And then he somehow, I mean, I'm surprised he even made it that many times into the top 3 in the podium, because quite frankly, he was rarely really called out that often throughout the solo match races, as you mentioned, State, just getting into that first place one time and still here within the top 4. Now here is
the opposite.
Yeah, the man. I mean, right, the first place finishes from 1 time to 14 times.
Almost half of all races NEAL has completed in solo match. Yeah. He has finished first, which is just absolutely stunning. And hey, we were talking before the show. I actually didn't see these stats about how good he looks in purple. His average points while in purple, 7.3. He's already leading overall in the KDL preseason with average points at 6.26. And he's a full point higher than that when in the purple stripes.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I mean, he currently holds 7 records, right, across these tracks. I mean, he is just playing time attack mode on his own. Now, the other thing with purple for NEAL is that he's had good memories with being in that purple slot in the past as well in Kartrider League. So the past 2 times he was also given that purple slot, and he was able to get into, I believe, like he won last year once, and then he got 3rd place as well. So this color suits him both visually and statistically.
Yeah, just truly phenomenal stuff. I mean, holding that many track records as well, when the map pool is like 12 tracks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's kind of
absurd.
He's just reaping it, of course. And then on the other side, a player that you might have expected to have that kind of accolade behind him, and he hasn't really been shining as much here in the solo match. And we say that because in team matches, he's been putting up incredible performances, right? Even winning out in the ace match against InSoo as well during that matchup prior in the round robin. I mean, World clearly, as an individual racer, he has the skills to be here. He has the skills to get to the top 2, but he hasn't quite shown it yet, and even in the past, he's never gotten to the final 2 yet either, right? He's entered the final 8 a couple times, but only got up to 4th.
In around the 32 and the round of 16, he was able to get 1st place in his group twice, so he is showing some time of brilliance occasionally here. And so I think the question that I have is, which world is going to show up today? Is it going to be the world that's going to be consistent from start to finish, or is it going to be the world that we've seen throughout this entire tournament that, takes a while to warm up before actually starting to accumulate those points? I mean, that's what we have here on the graphic.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's HyunSu's world, and we're just limited in it, so maybe there's no chance. I don't know what to tell you, man.
HyunSu owns him, I guess,
Yeah, HyunSu just owns the league, apparently. And now coming in the blue stripes, the blue racer, it's going to be Ding, his first ever top 8, right? His first ever finals for the solo match. Now, again, just statistically within his times and whatnot, he's had some good times. He, is able to hold the record as well for his personal time attacks. So clearly when he's practicing, when he's in his own element, he can put up the type of races you would want to see from a finalist. Now the question is, can he compete against these big names? The pressure surely affects him a little bit on that stage.
It's difficult, and you got to know that these players are going to be playing to win. You want to get that top 2. It's no longer playing just to survive with top 4 as it was throughout the entire solo match preseason. It's all about getting top 2 to go to that final 1v1 best of 5 match. And so Ding's going to have to really step up today if he's going to want to compete. I mean, the journey here for top 4 is something where you can be a little more conservative on, but actually getting top 2 in a group this stacked, it's crazy.
Yeah, and now last but not least, it's JiMin coming in the orange stripes in that 8th seed. Now, he's actually always usually taken the same path in the past whenever he's entered the solo matches of going into the losers bracket in the round of 16 and then going to the final bracket and coming back in. Now, of course, this time that was not the case. He did go up to the winner's match, but had to drop back down into the final matches, barely cutting it close here to get in on that very last slot. And while we call him the item ace, he's now wanting to evolve into I am ace. A little bit of a, I guess, rhyme in the first part of the word. But it works a lot better in Korean. But, you know, sound-wise, it still works in English as well. And JiMin just wanting to evolve into kind of that complete package you want in a kart rider racer.
Speed ace, but JiMin truly is one of those players that's able to deliver in both counts. I mean, reaching not only the item ace for Live Sandbox in team match mode, but also here in the solo match getting top 8. I mean, it's turning heads. It certainly turned mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impressive. Now, I think for JiMin, more so than trying to really greed for that trophy and whatnot, just trying to get a higher record than he's had in the past, right? He's only been able to get all the way up to 5th place prior to that, but now let's take a look at them in each of their seats. And HyunSu, now it's his first time wearing the yellow here in the solo match finals, and he's just saying, well, Sandbox equals yellow. Of course this is our color, this is my color. Again, it's his world, and he wants to prove it.
Yep, wearing the yellow, wearing the gold. Live Sandbox with 4 players in total here. The Freaks with 2. One of them is Cool. He says it is only 2 hours away from becoming the champion. As Goat Cool. that
Goat
that
Cool.
graphic said I like
it.
that one, yeah.
Now, Cool, he kind of has a nickname here in Korea as like the Legend of Autumn or the Legend of the Fall. That's when he performs best, but he's trying to overcome that, of course, now here in the spring. And now InSoo, just asking for the support. I actually, I was sitting next to him when he was also getting his makeup done to prep for today's match, and he was just telling the makeup artist, like, listen, I know it's my last dance, but I just want to enjoy it. You know, I just want to go out with a bang and see if that helps take the pressure off. He does look nervous, though. It's his last chance to potentially finally lift the solo trophy.
Yeah, and Knock here, part of the Knock Tech duo, only one. Competing now here for Aura in the grand finals. The Ultra Super Observer. We'll see if his slow, kind of conservative, methodical style is able to deliver him to a top 2 finish here.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
in the final match.
It's much easier to calculate to get into top 4 instead of top 2. See if you can do it. Ooh.
Okay, look at all those first places right down there, Chobra.
Yeah, it's all just number 1s, right?
Average points, first place finishes, podium percentage, best record on 7 out of 12 tracks.
Yeah, 7 out of 12 dragons is ridiculous, actually. And he just says showtime. I like it. Short and simple, to the point. Doesn't have to see much. He's going to prove it on the track. Meanwhile, World just saying, let's all have some fun together. I think World always, like, whenever he puts in these quotes, he's always kind of revolving around, hey, let's just enjoy it. Let's have a fun match. You know, let's have an entertaining match. But here's the thing. You can tell that the pressure gets to him sometimes in the race. He wants to prove that he can lift that trophy. He can get to the top 2. And he hasn't had a chance to do so just yet.
Oh, Ding actually shouting out Acid Fly for helping him reach the finals, so perhaps helping him with his lines here in solo match, giving him some advice. Is Ding wearing the blue stripes, one of the lower seeds coming in today. We'll see if he's able to step it up here for Team Reboot, who would love to have one of their players walk away with a trophy at the end of the season.
That would be incredible, because they're going up against, you know, the likes of JiMin, 4 racers from Live Sandbox. And JiMin just saying, yeah, today I am the ace, right? There's no kind of word coming in front of it. There's no descriptor in front of the ace. I'm just the ace. I am ace here. JiMin, can he get to the top 2 and then potentially lift the trophy? Once again, just a quick reminder, as we begin with the top 8, it's the first to 80 points, and then whoever reaches 80 points, at that point, we stop and say the top 2 players, and you now enter into a 1v1 ace match that's a best of 5.
Yeah, so top 2 is going to be qualifying for the ace match. And I think it's time for us to get started, Chobra. The KDL Preseason 1 solo match grand finals begins now. On track number 1, it will be Factory Facility 5.
And they're off as we kick off the first ever solo match finals here in Kart Rider Drift with Preseason 1 of the KDL. Nock, NEAL, and InSoo taking an early lead.
Yeah, NEAL right behind Nock, off to a great start already, but man, what a good beginning here for the Team Aura player. Holding on to this, taking the shortcut here. Does collide a little bit there with the wall. I mean, there's a lot of players right now trying to gun for that top spot. Actually, NEAL, off that collision, able to take first place just for now. We'll see if he can hold on to it. InSoo taking the tightener line, actually. Look at these collisions.
Yeah, InSoo wants to get first place, and meanwhile, just to avoid the collision on that jump earlier, Cool did have to drift a little bit further out as he was dropping off the cog, but he is going to catch up very quickly. I mean, the top 4 bunched up right now. Anyone could take it. World has snuck his way in the meantime.
Yeah, NEAL just staying very consistent here, remaining in top 4 and striking distance for first place. World for now holding on to it with Cool right on his heels. Coming into this shortcut, everyone's able to navigate it well. InSoo a little bit better than others, but NEAL, all these collisions, everyone here in the middle of the pack losing a ton of momentum. Meanwhile, NEAL pulling ahead from World.
Yeah, I think this might just be NEAL's. World should have one extra chance here to try to overtake him, but meanwhile, the rest not going to be able to catch up to the top 2 too easily. InSoo had lost so much speed earlier, he's out of contention here for the first track podium. Meanwhile, NEAL and World, and then it's JiMin and Nock following through, but NEAL is going to cross the finish line just a step ahead of World.
Yeah, just a step ahead of World is NEAL as he takes another first place finish, man. He has been so clutch in every single solo match thus far. He's won almost 50% of every track that he's raced on, which is just a truly phenomenal stat. And the momentum, it is not slowing down here for NEAL. If anything, it's building here.
Yes.
Track number 1, already a win. Now we go to NEAL's map choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, curious to see. Not going to set the new record here, and that means, of course, for now, we're not going to see anyone overtake that one. That record actually currently held by Speed, who didn't make it to the top 8. But NEAL kicking it off strong here on track 1, and that means, of course, he will have track selection here for the next round.
And you got to consider also, NEAL has track selection. He has records on 7 of the other 11 tracks
I want to see
him might play on, man.
Well, no. I want to see him pick one of the tracks he doesn't have a record on, just so he can set another new record, all right? That's the type of confidence I want to see in my racer state.
Just full sweep it.
Yes.
Every single track, pick up that solo record. Anyone could do it, man. It would be NEAL.
Yeah, you might as well collect the trophies. Yeah, so right here, what happened right before this highlight actually is InSoo had to make such a sharp drift there that he lost so much speed, so he was trying to control his car to just cut those corners, but at the end of the day, it was either stopping and kind of knocking himself and each other out, or hitting the wall, and InSoo kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, not able to overcome that. Cool, of course, taking a casualty there as well, but okay, it's going to be Desert Ancient Aqueducts, the pick coming in from NEAL for round number 2.
And off we go here in round 2 of the solo match grand finals. NEAL, first track racer, holding the record here on Ancient Aqueducts right now in 5th place. Bad collision there, I believe, for either InSoo or World. Pull them all the way to the back of the pack, but as it is right now, NEAL closing distance here on top 4 as we enter these very technical, long, sweeping turns.
Yeah, of course, we might see some variations on builds as well as NEAL. Because he was away from the crowd, he could just focus on his own build there to make sure he tries to catch up. A bit of a collision, though, as he tries to overtake into 3rd place. He's going to get pushed out for now, but everyone's still bunched up close enough. If we can find everyone on that mini-map here on 3rd place, everyone still has a chance to catch up to each other, especially because this track is very narrow, right? One bad collision on some of these, 90-degree turns or something like that, and we could see an error. Now, curious to see if maybe towards the 2nd lap, do we see some spin turns there at the end as well to try to overtake each other?
Yeah, we might. I mean, this being one of the most difficult tracks, actually, InSoo there getting the better end of a trade as some players colliding with a wall. But look at how hotly contested it is here at the front of the race. HyunSu there with another collision will pull him down to 5th place, but everybody in drafting distance, just inches separating each and every racer.
Ooh, InSoo looked like like he maybe wanted to block there and kind of runs into the wall himself, lost a lot of speed. He's going to have to use a lot to catch back up. Meanwhile, his teammates, JiMin and NEAL up front. And InSoo loses a bit of control again as he tries to block another racer behind him. I mean, InSoo so focused on trying to play aggressively that it's hurting him just a bit. Meanwhile, Cool weaves right in between JiMin and NEAL. He cannot overtake JiMin just yet.
No, not just yet. JiMin doing a nice job body blocking him right now. The item mace here for Lib Sandbox has some collisions. We'll have Cool pull all the way to the back right there in third. NEAL now hot on the tail of JiMin's going to try and pass him. Only 500 meters left to go. NEAL taking the tight inner line. JiMin with great body blocking.
But NEAL has another boost. He was ahead and he's able to cut ahead. And meanwhile, trying to block him, JiMin takes quite a bit of a hit, drops all the way down to 5th. NEAL takes first yet again.
Wow, another first place finish here for NEAL as he is off to a hot start. 20 points already on the board. Keep in mind, it is a race to 80 here, not a race to 50, as this is the grand finals for this solo match. And I mean, NEAL, he's just so calm, so cool. You can tell the nerves are not getting to him at all, almost expressionless there on his face as he just expects to win. Does not set a new record, about half a second behind the record that he already holds from the round of 16 match. And I mean, right now it's neck and neck between World, HyunSu, JiMin right behind them for that second place, but NEAL off to a very good early lead here, Trobra. And I'm starting to feel like we might be seeing NEAL in that top 2 almost no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a very big likelihood if you're already up 20 points, right? And of course, it is a race to 80, so a bit longer here, and there's still plenty of room. It's too early to tell just yet, but the way he's racing today, I mean, it's not like he's completely avoiding any sort of, physical skirmish, any of these body blocking scenarios, but at the same time, he just knows how to put pressure from behind to overtake them on those inner turns, and now he has another track pick here in round 3. We will be going to Mine Winding Slopes. And they're off. NEAL currently leading at 20 points, followed by World and HyunSu at 11 and 10 each. Meanwhile, InSoo currently evening out at 0 points here in the first 2 tracks. He's going to want to start putting some points on the board if he wants a chance to get to that final 2.
Yeah, NEAL heavily prioritizing filling up that nitrous gauge here from the start. We'll have him fall all the way back to 6th place, but we've seen him use that nitrous to close the distance time and time again here. So keep a close eye on him on the left side standings as we come into a couple of these first turns. Right now, Knock in the lead. Ding and InSoo right behind him. InSoo, keep in mind, this is his last solo match finals here before military service. He would love to start getting some podium finishes to get closer and closer to qualifying for that top 2 spot to make it to that ace match.
Yeah, okay, no one hitting that little corner there. We've seen a couple players try to greed on that and make mistakes prior in ace matches, but this time everyone getting through smoothly just fine. Looks like InSoo has woken up and said, you know what, I gotta start getting these points on the board. I just gotta get into the podium for now, and then I can start vying for that first place finish.
Man, and NEAL is really just taking every advantage they possibly can, even on those straightaway narrows. Oh, look at these swings!
What is this spin turn? Across 3 different turns, and he survives every collision. Now seeing if he can boost forward into the podium. He might be able to get into 3rd.
Wow, NEAL walking away with 3rd place there. InSoo will have first, but man, NEAL going from the middle of the pack to an insane play. One of the craziest turns we've seen in solo match all preseason long. Will net him another podium. And InSoo, man, he gets on the board too.
Yeah, I mean, he catches up with a 10-point boost here by taking first place. But NEAL, the crazy part about that was, I mean, because he had to go through too many spin turns, of course, he does lose a bit more speed than he would want, but that also saves him from colliding into anyone, from having to reposition in any way. I mean, NEAL's always coming up with these crafty ways to go through the tracks, and proves it once again that he's always researching how he needs to get past his competition once the track is live on the stage.
Yeah, there's a reason why the community here in Korea often calls him the genius, because not only his cart build sometimes, which can be a little bit zany, but the lines that he takes, like moves like that one, are just absolutely spellbinding. I mean, almost at a loss for worlds is, oh, we missed this during the race.
Yeah, I saw him bump up, but okay, so he didn't drop, but he was stuck for so long trying to avoid the drop, and Oh, here we go. Yeah, let's watch this in slow motion. So there's, it's a what, 360, a full 360 into another 180. So
it's like playing like a skateboarding game or something, man. Like doing these tricks to fill up your meter. Like
that's what, a 540 spin turn there, not a regular 360. That's insane.
If Tony Hawk was like 18 years old and playing Kart Rider Drift, that's the kind of move that he would be making, man. NEAL just really showing up today. We'll see if he can keep the momentum going with another podium finish as we move to Glacier Snowbound Slopes. Off we go again here on round number 4. InSoo off to a hot start after getting on the board with 10 points there on the previous track. We'll see if he's able to continue to add to this, as he's now sitting tied for 3rd place, very close behind top 2.
Yeah, just a couple more bumps as well. And listen, no one is trying to make way for each other, right? No one is, we can tell that no one's really relying on, hey, just get a couple points and eventually make it to the podium, because you have to get into the top 2. This is different. Top 4, yes, you can sit idly by for a couple of tracks, just make sure you're slowly racking up points. But top 2, anything can change in a minute. Now, of course, most of the racers preferring to take the left turn there as they enter the cave. A couple ones still going with their old habits of going the right side.
Yeah, JiMin, the item ace here for Liv Sandbox, just continuing to hold on to 1st place really well. Cool and NEAL battling a little bit there. NEAL looking for some body blocks, does not want to get overtaken, wants to have the 1v1 here with JiMin if he can. And taking this outer line, we'll see if he's able to breach into 1st place here as we get ready to move into lap number 2 very soon. HyunSu here on the outside, not able to close it isn't just yet. Some nice drifting though.
Yeah, just trying to catch right back up after JiMin tries to contest against him to reserve his own spot. Now everyone getting into the ski lift, and we're off once again as we get near the end of the 1st lap here.
Yeah. Oh, JiMin had a nitrous banked and was using it to try to pass Cool, but Cool with great body blocking drove him into the wall. So JiMin's gonna fall all the way down into 5th place here. Cool now in a comfortable lead there in 1st. No one really in drafting range even. As, I mean, HyunSu, DDing, and NEAL, they're gonna have to start, I mean, almost working together to draft off each other to try and fight for that 1st place position. You don't really want to be focusing too much on body blocking the player behind you right now. You want to close to try and get that 1st place.
Yeah, now thanks to the hairpins, of course, eventually they'll catch back up, so it's a matter of who's just ahead in terms of top speed and boost, and NEAL somehow, he actually pushes Cool out onto the outside as he just forces him. He kind of challenges him and says, well, do you want to crash together or do you want to make way? And Cool says, fine, I'll just overtake you on the jump. Now it's a 1v1 and HyunSu closely pressuring behind him, and Cool stuck in between these two Liv Sandbox players.
And NEAL with some incredibly aggressive driving there. DDing on the outside, actually able to take 1st place for just a moment there. And now Cool here, hanging right, doing a little bit of drifting, trying to build up that nitrous gauge as we get closer and closer to the finish line. NEAL still in 1st place. Will Cool be able to pass him though? DDing also here in 2nd, but there's too many collisions. NEAL's gonna pick up another 1st place finish. 3 out of the first 4 tracks going to NEAL.
Incredible from NEAL, and Cool, I mean, we saw him continuously whenever they go into that tree section, go to the outside off of a draft so he can maintain his top speed. He can get a couple cheeky slices in to regain that boost, and he did so. But here's the thing, NEAL already also had an extra boost left in the bank, so there was no chance for Cool to catch up. And meanwhile, I mean, he then had to contest against DDing, who had somehow made his way into the top 3 towards the end there. Cool eventually gets pushed down to 4th. World and DDing taking 2nd and 3rd, and that maintains their overall leaderboard positions as well.
Yeah, but it's starting to shape up here at the top with DDing, JiMin, InSoo, and HyunSu all very close, either 10 or 11 points apiece. And World, you know, getting closer and closer there to NEAL. At the top, these two are starting to pull away from the pack as we have a quick recap here of this race. I mean, NEAL just taking such tight inner lines throughout what felt like the entire track. And I love this play here against Cool, just really threatening to drive him into that wall. Of course, if Cool did collide with that wall, it could have been disastrous for him. He wanted a gun for that top 2 finish. And so he plays back, he backs off a little bit, and NEAL able to ride that into another win.
NEAL's looking in tip-top condition, and you called it earlier just right after track 2. State just saying that it looks like he'll probably be in the top 2 for that ace match, and so far it's looking likely with 35 points already, near halfway towards that 80-point mark, and he gets another choice of track. It's going to be Village Boom Hill Tunnel. And we're off in round 5 here in the solo match finals of KDL Preseason 1. Coming into Boom Hill Tunnel, now JiMin currently holding the record here, but see what NEAL has prepped.
And JiMin actually the only racer to go on the left side there at the start, as he's already pulling into 4th place, trying to close the distance, trying to add a little bit more points on the board. DDing off to a great start as well here in first world, right behind him.
Yeah, this is not a bad position for DDing, because this track, it's really hard to rely on overtaking towards the end as it gets so narrow. There's the shortcuts as well. There's the risk of colliding each other into the wall. So DDing, if he can just try to stay within top 3, he has a great chance of adding on a lot more points to his leaderboard.
Yeah, but looking at the picture-in-picture here, the mini-map, it's a very tight race here at the top. Even NEAL in 8th place, not very far behind anybody else here in this track. And now it's going to be Nock taking the lead over HyunSu. These two going neck and neck. Actually, World trying to get in on the action with his inner line. Colliding even with Nock to try and fortify his position. And now it's NEAL!
He's jumped onto the railing.
Oh my goodness,
again.
what a line!
Because they were vying for each other, trying to make sure they push each other out. NEAL can safely take his own build on the railing, and now he takes first place out of nowhere. And he's constantly going from the out to in to make sure he can block out World. World does not have an opening yet. He does have that one extra boost. He uses it right at the end to bump NEAL out to 2nd place.
Oh, what a play there from NEAL, though. He only walks away with top 2 here on this track. World, of course, getting first place, so adding to his points total. He was already at 21, so now he's moving up to 31 as him and NEAL continue to solidify here at the top. But NEAL, just before that, he was in 8th place. And then all this team fighting, or not team fighting, excuse me, all these collisions that were happening between these other racers as they were vying for these top spots allowed him just to take his build, come up with some insane line, going up on the high ground there, and he gets another top 2 finish.
Absolutely incredible from NEAL. I mean, just understanding, I think, more so the mentality that players might have, right? You're taking a look, everyone's still bunched up enough that you could overtake anybody, and you make the decision, okay, they're gonna have to fight for each other. I'm actually out of the radar for most people, so I might as well take my own build with the shortcut here off the railing on that bridge, and then jumps onto the sidewalk. And because of the collisions that you mentioned, State, everyone had lost so much speed that NEAL actually able to shoot into first for a little bit. At the end of the day, boost management done very well by World. He's able to eventually overtake NEAL at the last corner.
Yeah, we're about halfway through the race now. NEAL sitting at 42 points, World at 31. So World will be choosing the next track. And, you know, right behind him, InSoo and JiMin, they're at 15 points apiece, so 16 total score.
Oh, he doesn't.
What? This. I didn't even know you can make that jump, man.
Yeah, he doesn't take the railing either. He's figured out the boost he needs to jump right onto the edge. Because I was wondering, because if you, and we just had an absolute mess there. But the thing is normally before that we saw people going with the build that NEAL showed off earlier, where you jump onto the railing, but that does decrease your speed a bit. But he's figured out a way to just overcome that entirely.
I mean, he is the genius. He is the genius, man. They call him that for a reason. The builds that he comes up with, just absolutely phenomenal. We'll see if he can do it again. We're moving on to Glacier Extreme Stadium for the next track. Here we go, round 6 of the solo match finals. InSoo, JiMin, and Cool desperately needing a podium finish here to start closing the distance between themselves and World and NEAL. Otherwise, I mean, with NEAL already in first place and with World playing as well that he has so far today, I feel like we might already have our top 2 shaping up, Chobra.
I mean, it's looking likely, but World, he has to understand that if NEAL gets to 80 points first, that's when the first part of the finals ends, and then it's just whoever is right behind NEAL that gets to enter the final ace match. So World cannot relax just yet. Plenty of players can still catch up, like InSoo and then DDing, of course. So we'll see. JiMin still with 15 points. NEAL now still leading in first place. He might get to just continuously choose every single track today.
Feels like it coming into these hairpin turns. We'll see if he's able to hold on to this tight line, and in fact he does. No one really able to pass him here as we come into this jump turn. NEAL taking another really tight line. InSoo going a little bit too greedy there. Actually loses some momentum, but I mean, you got to make these plays if you're in InSoo's position to try and greed out some more placement points, right?
Yeah, because NEAL currently has no regard for anybody else and he's just speeding towards 80 points. InSoo starting to recognize that he may not have as much margin to try to catch up in points to get into that top 2. I mean, everyone feeling the same way. Of course, we should note, I mean, HyunSu, he came in as the yellow racer as first seed here in the final 8. He's currently sitting in last place with only 9 points.
Yeah, it's not a good start here for HyunSu as he continues to try and fight for first place. That would really help him out and try to get into position there for that top 2 as we enter, the final hairpin turns here on lap number 2. NEAL still in first place. He held on to this last time. Will he be able to do it again? Coming into the turns, HyunSu not able to close the distance, and World actually closing the distance here on DDing. He has 2 nitros in the bag. Is going to pop one right now. Finish line 200 meters away. NEAL is going to be getting another track win.
What a great defense against HyunSu even at the end. I mean, constantly pressuring people to basically pick and choose if they want to go for a greater risk or if you just kind of take the positions he currently have. I mean, even there, he positions himself in a way where his cart is still angled to maintain his speed. And HyunSu, he just has to either collide or just take the outer line and safely take second place.
And with World picking up what I think was another top 4 there, we now see it on the screen. Another record here set by NEAL. 1 minute, 50.8 seconds.
A full second? Oh, nearly a full second here from his last record as well.
My goodness.
To be fair, he wasn't contested much here.
No, it was like a time attack, man. That was crazy. But, I mean, the way this is shaping up right now, World, even though he's in second place, has almost double the points of anyone below him. It's going to take, almost consecutive first place finishes from anybody in the 3rd, 4th, 5th place rankings to actually start to make a dent in that lead. But, World, we've been talking a lot about how well NEAL has been racing here in these 8-player races, but World also showing up. I mean, he's in the podium, it feels like almost every single time. If he's not, he's getting top 4, he's getting top 5. And he's starting to consolidate those points. We're getting closer and closer to the end here, more than halfway through, as we'll see if NEAL can continue his reign of terror moving on to World Tour Rio de Janeiro.
Currently 52 out of 80 points for NEAL in the grand finals for the solo match of KDL Preseason 1. He's so close. I mean, if he continues to get first place, just 3 more tracks, and he'll be able to end the first part of the finals today in speedy fashion, and he is willing to fight for it right now as he continues to contest for the lead once again as they enter the narrow sections of this track.
Yeah, InSoo already in first place as NEAL's fighting, surpassing right now. InSoo actually the track record holder here on Rio de Janeiro. God, it's a tongue twister.
It is a long track name, yeah.
But InSoo just taking some really nice lines. This is where he's comfortable. This is one of his best tracks overall here in KDL as we come into this nice long turn through the pitch. And NEAL able to take the inner line, not able to pass him just yet, but InSoo, he desperately needs this win if he wants to start to close the distance on World.
Yeah, and InSoo, NEAL, and JiMin, of course, 3 players on that Live Sandbox team, but right now it's solo matches, and because NEAL's so far ahead, everyone has to fight for their own survival to try to get into top 2. InSoo, he wanted to push NEAL out, but he actually bounces off just enough. He's able to regain control, though. He's now still fighting for that top spot against JiMin and Nock. They're still colliding against each other, but InSoo with a great position to defend, and he's not able to get first place. Nock drifts way on the outside with a boost and takes his first place podium finish.
And Nock by inches, able to supplant InSoo there right at the end. InSoo walking away with second place, which, yes, second place is good. You get 7 more points, but I mean, it hurts because World also got a podium finish there. So the distance, or the difference, excuse me, in points between these racers, it's only closing a little tiny bit. And with how well that NEAL's been racing, I mean, this time he did get 7th place.
Right, that's what I wanted to point out, though, right, is that he doesn't get any extra points this time. So that you buy time for yourself, and that's the thing you have to remember in these solo matches is, yes, you have to calculate how many first places can I get, but at the end of the day, if someone else at the top is able to get 7th or 8th place, maybe even lose a couple points, now you've gained yourself a couple more tracks margin to try to catch up.
Yeah, the question is it going to be enough time, even with NEAL not gaining any points here, as we get a quick look again here at the finish line. And actually, how did Nock do this? Just barely taking that drift, able to pass through, and So that will be a little bit more time for everybody else. Of course, NEAL finishing in 7th does not accumulate any more points, but it's still an 18-point differential between World and JiMin. And right now, World, I mean, he doesn't need to shoot for 1st place. He doesn't need to shoot for 2nd. Just be consistent, get top 3, top 4, and you're going to pretty much solidify your position and carry yourself into that final best-of-5 ace match. As we continue on here in the solo match grand finals, we're moving on to World Tour Boostwood. Round 8 here as we continue our race to 80 points. NEAL currently in 1st with 52 and in 1st in this track as well, or at least he was for a moment there, as he just continues his hot start.
Yeah, now this, of course, compared to a couple of those tracks we had on the earlier part of the day, a bit of a wider track, so still plenty of room to try to make sure that you're getting your cuts and slices, and if you're behind, to try to get an extra boost to catch up. You're not going to have as many collisions as we saw because it's been a hot competition today with tons of people just crashing into each other, not making way for each other at all.
No, nobody wants to give away even a little tiny bit, but I mean, you have to think that now you really just have to be playing not to try and mess anybody else up, but just to give yourself space and try and get 1st place, get 2nd place, because the difference between getting top 2 and not is you're not going to have a chance of even winning this thing, right? It's a 1v1 grand final for the best of 5 there as we finish lap number 1 right now. Cool in 1st place and NEAL right behind him. And I mean, this is what people want to see right now is World in 7th place, InSoo right here in 1st, Cool in 2nd, HyunSu in 4th. If these players can start to add in more points, and if World can fall behind a little bit, then maybe they can start to close the distance. But I mean, World, I say that, and he's already catching back up, Chobra.
Yeah, well, World actually avoids kind of the middle of the pack, and he's able to get back into the top 4, at least contest against it. NEAL's hot on his trail as well, but as you mentioned, if these 2 players end up in 5th or 8th, the rest of the racers will all be happy to take an extra track or 2 to try to get back into the top 2 finish. Now, this time it's Cool and Knock, 2 racers who absolutely need the points if they want to contest to get into that ace match, but World says, I want to finish this as soon as possible. He's trying to compete, but he gets pushed out.
He gets pushed out, falls all the way to 8th place, and now Cool in 1st place coming into the finish line will be able to pick up 10 more points. The bottom finisher at 15 points now coming all the way up to 25 as, you know, the difference between World and these remaining players below rank 2 starts to diminish a little bit there as he only placed, well, that was an 8th place finish, not even a 7th.
He gets wiped out.
That's a -1 point overall, as we'll see exactly how the standings shake out, and that makes this a little bit more competitive in the midfield. As you know, it is a marathon here, it's not a sprint. Is Cool setting even a new record here on World Tour Boostwood, desperately needed to show up, but I mean, this is kind of what Cool has done throughout KDL solo matches over the course of this tournament. Is generally it takes him a little while to kind of get going. He doesn't do as hot the first couple of rounds, but as it goes later and later in the solo matches, as he gets warmed up and comfortable, he starts to perform better. I'm just wondering, is it a little bit too late? Even with a 1st place finish here, it's a concerning situation.
Well, I mean, if NEAL and World are continuously pushed down into 6th, 7th, 8th, right? I mean, you could have infinitely more tracks at that point to try to catch back up. And we are going to go to the pick of Cool this time, now going into round 9 of the solo match finals here in KDL. It's World Tour Terracotta Twister. Cool currently holding the record here in solo matches in the KDL Preseason 1, so he picks the track that he's most familiar with, and I would say overall the Guangdong Freaks racers in general have always looked very comfortable here on this track.
Oh yeah, but I mean, even a team match, it feels like it's so good the way that they're able to bounce off each other, be able to play any position they need to. And they're just so comfortable here on Terracotta Twister. You rarely see them ever mess up, but Cool, I mean, he might be the record holder, but right now he's already in 8th place. Is DDing, JiMin, and InSoo fighting it out here in top 3. Knock right behind him.
Oh,
InSoo with some really nice boosting there. Able to come in as we enter these really tricky turns. Let's see how gritty these racers are going to be.
Yeah, JiMin trying to play attack and defense at the same time. He is able to recover and maintain his 2nd place. Meanwhile, most of the rest of the racers just accepting the fact that we don't want to collide. You know what, we'll just kind of go in a straight line. I'll vie for my opportunity here in lap 2.
Yeah, it's all about getting top 2 here. all about getting to that ace match. So a lot of these players that are lower on the standings right now are just not trying to take those risks. There's no reason to try and bump somebody off there if it's not going to help you get, you know, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3 on this specific track. And, you know, InSoo, I mean, this is his last dance right now in solo match. He's in first place again, right neck and neck here with JiMin. He really needs more points to close the distance with World, who's right behind him in 4th.
Yeah, I mean, JiMin and InSoo both kind of in that middle of the pack in terms of points right now. They desperately want the 10 points. And then you can also choose your own track. Now they're going to enter the tomb area as the 1-2 position. See if they can maintain it. Cool and World hot on their tails. See if they can overtake. They've already overtaken Ding. He's gone way too far to play it safe.
Yep. World taking the nice outer line there, playing it really safe as he recognizes his position. He doesn't need to take too many risks, just slowly accumulate more points as we're only 500 meters away now. InSoo still in first place. Great body blocking there on JiMin, but JiMin just has a little bit more speed. Actually, cool! Coming from the back, the record holder here on Terracotta Twister, able to make a stunning comeback, really. I mean, on lap number 1, halfway through, he was in 8th place. And at the end of the day, he walks away with first.
That's so unfortunate for InSoo and JiMin. There was a world where they could both still finish top 2, but what ends up happening is because InSoo's trying to block against JiMin, who gets the draft and tries to go on the outer, InSoo also tries to contest onto the outer side while they get prepped for that last kind of half of a corner. And Cool just says, thanks for the draft and boost. I see an open lane in front of me. I'm just going to go right by with not any sort of fight. And now he's boosted up to 35 points. He's well in range to catch up the World.
It's getting closer and closer here. NEAL only 26 points away from actually closing this thing out, but as it stands right now, that lead for World not as comfortable as it was a moment ago. He hasn't been having the best result the past couple of tracks, and a lot of these players, especially Cool here, I think with two back-to-back track wins, just really adding into the momentum as we're getting ready to move on to Forest Zigzag Timberland. Will Cool be able to supplant World in top 2? Let's find out. Here we go, round 10 on Zigzag Timberland. NEAL, the record holder here for solos on this track, already off to a great start. As for a moment there, it seemed like he was just focused on building up his boost gauge, but still able to get top 2 right now. That's just a tremendous position for him, man. He knows this track like the back of his hand.
I mean, we've seen NEAL, even in the team matches, if he gets into first place here in Zigzag Timberland, he does not let go of it. But right now, it's his teammate who doesn't have to sweep for anybody anymore. InSoo, I mean, can he continue to thrive? Try to get into yet another top 2 to go for finally his last chance to lift the trophy before entering mandatory military service, because he's never been able to do that in solo matches just yet.
A first place here would be absolutely clutch, especially with World right now sitting 8th place. InSoo, I think, about 12 points behind him right now on the board. So if he's able to hold on to first, as it can be kind of hard to defend this many racers here. He's actually, he's barely holding on. I keep thinking Ding's going to be able to pass him on the inner line as InSoo just tries to body block and zone out literally everybody. It's such a difficult maneuver to do here with 3 racers right behind you, and JiMin eventually going to be able to find that angle and pass InSoo. Ding now right behind him, but InSoo still in contention here as we enter lap number 2.
Yeah, InSoo just kind of going for a crisscross here on the straightaway to get a couple extra slices in to try to catch up. Now JiMin bouncing off of the boundary there just a bit, but able to recover here in the middle of the track, and World has taken that opportunity to shoot back into first place. And InSoo, now he's in the reverse position to have to fight through the crowd if he wants to retake first place and get the track selection for the coming round.
And for everybody here that's not NEAL, I mean, you're looking at World in first place and you are sweating because him sitting in second, that's the cutoff. That's the guy that you got to pass. So we're going to see if they can close the distance here on World. And I would expect a lot more collisions on him if they can get close, but
they should be able to with the hairpins. But the question is where do the boost gauges lie? Because that's how you're going to be able to maintain your speed. And look at that, Cool, because he was ahead with 1 extra boost, he's now right behind World as they enter the hairpin. Now World has to play defense. He cannot just focus on his own race. HyunSu jumps around the outside to try to add pressure. NEAL shoots forward into second place.
Yep, NEAL even has a nitro in the back here as we're getting closer and closer to the finish line. Will he be able to pass World? Nice collision there on World. Oh, he bounces off the wall!
He forces him off as a ping pong just back and forth between the walls. And NEAL, no! Cool overtakes him at the near end as well, but NEAL, his mission is done. He is able to regain control of the leaderboard as he comes in second place.
Yeah, NEAL with another top 2 finish there, but the real story for me is Cool picking up another 10 points. We'll move him all the way up to 45, and World didn't have the best finish, so you know, that lead between World and Cool, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller here as it's starting to get really competitive in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and InSoo at 8th place loses a point as well, so slowly getting out of the radar here.
1 point.
Yeah, not in the top 4, and meanwhile it's 61, 46, 45, and Cool has all but caught up here to enter the top 2, to enter that potential ace match. And NEAL, I mean, he was stuck right around 52 to 54 for 4 tracks in a row, you know, always stuck between that 6th and 8th place, and now he regains control with 7 points, way up to 61.
Yeah, comfortable 15-point lead there for NEAL in first place as we get a replay here of him trying to take those tight inner lines to work his way into first, and he did a great job of really closing the distance. And this collision here on World forces him to bounce off that wall, and like you said, like a ping pong ball, man.
Yeah,
just going every which way. Cool eventually able to get first place there right at the finish, but for NEAL, I mean, yes, he is in first place, but also his biggest threat is World, so going for those attacks right there.
And I think that's why, because he practically pretty much went for a straight boost on the corner to knock him out more than anything, and it succeeds. World not able to recover, and now we're getting ready for the next track selected by Cool once again. It will be Mine Gold Rush. And we're off. Cool, a man on a mission right now to try to get into the top 2 position, maybe even take top spot on the leaderboard, currently held by NEAL with 61 points out of 80.
Yeah, it's neck and neck between World and Cool right now, as World's gonna have to start showing up here if he wants to come away with that top 2 and force the ace match here against NEAL, who is sitting comfortably 15 points ahead of everybody else. But as it is right now, HyunSu, the first seed coming into this race with a bit of a better showing here, a bit of a better start on round number 11. Right there up there with InSoo.
Oh, NEAL with a nice line there on the jump. He's able to find the opening in between the players. Everyone trying to just make sure they set up for the next curves, and NEAL says, I don't need that. Just gonna get into the top 3 as they now get ready to enter the teleporter. World just making sure he can maintain his boost gauges as he goes in.
Yep, World right now in 4th place, gonna try and close the distance as best he can right now, as he is able to get all the way up in the 5th. Now, NEAL pulling ahead of the pack just a little bit, and we've seen this time and time again where he gets a bit of a lead, and the lines that he takes, the build that he comes through with on almost any track, it's so hard to pass. There's a reason why he holds the record on 7 out of the 12 tracks here.
Yeah, and InSoo was looking for that opening in between and finally finds it. I mean, earlier JiMin was able to block against him alongside NEAL, but this time InSoo now putting pressure onto NEAL, and this is where we have to see it. Can NEAL keep on it? Because oftentimes when he's in that first place, there's no one to contest him. But now with InSoo, NEAL has to start playing defense once again.
Yep, InSoo gonna try and find that line. DDing actually colliding with InSoo a little bit. We'll give NEAL a little more breathing room here as we enter the tunnel yet again.
Everyone's got double boosts ready to go here in the last turns, and InSoo and NEAL, who's gonna take first place? HyunSu hot on the trail. He goes for the inner, but InSoo swings out to secure first place.
InSoo with great boost control. They're able to walk away with first place. NEAL with the top 3 finish, and Cool finishing in 4th. World all the way down at 8th. So Cool at last is going to be passing him in the standings. Will be in 2nd place heading into the next track, but we're getting closer and closer to the finish line, Chobra. NEAL with another podium finish.
I mean, NEAL, that's now the focal point, right? Is sure, Cool and World, there's still a little bit of contention to be done there, and we'll have to check the leaderboard here to see what the middle of the pack looks like. InSoo has caught up to 40 points, so InSoo is very well in position to enter top 2. Now the question becomes, does NEAL end up just getting first place again in a row? Because that would end the solo match suddenly, very abruptly, as we get ready for round 12.
Even a 1st and a 2nd or 3rd place would be able to do it, so it's a very dangerous situation for these racers right now. Only guaranteed 2 more tracks, and with how well NEAL has been playing today, that very well might be all they get. So InSoo, he's gonna need some podium finishes. He's gonna need some first places, frankly, if he wants to close the distance and get that top 2, as we're ending very soon here. The solo match is getting closer and closer to 80 points as we move on to Desert Construction Chaos. Will NEAL get another podium finish? NEAL 14 points away from sending himself to that ace match as we continue here with round number 12.
See if he can do it. I mean, we talked about it again. He just needs to get, first and then second or something like that to be able to lock that in to go to the ace match. And then the question becomes who's been racking up the most points. Currently, Cool in the lead for second place with 49.
Cool having a really good performance here in the later portion of the final match, the final set here with 8 racers, and he's off to a good start again in 5th place. Would not be surprised to see him close the distance here on InSoo and DDing. As we come up here on this uphill portion, InSoo taking the nice outer line there, trying to hold on to this as best he can. I'm actually surprised DDing wasn't able to pass. Finally, DDing able to close the distance, but it is so close here among all these racers. I mean, pretty much everybody on screen all the time.
Yeah, everyone's been bunched up and everyone just politely trying to slow down to make sure they don't collide, but Nox still gets bumped out as he doesn't want to make too much way, and InSoo just waits for that opening. InSoo going for the slow and steady approach there in the difficult part of the track, and now getting ready for lap 2. InSoo's in contention for top 2 finish.
Yep, World though, he needs a better finish than 8th place that he got last time. Now in first here, up there with NEAL as he wants to retake that 2nd place position. Keep in mind, it is top 2 that goes to the ace match here. NEAL almost all but a shoo-in to qualify. So the question is, who's going to go up against him? With a lot of racers very close behind.
Yeah, and the fact that InSoo, even in these solo matches, he's constantly vying for these opportunities to just hard stop against his racers so that he stays ahead, and then he'll still manage to try to find an opening to catch up, and he's gonna have it. If there was ever a chance, everyone's still with double boost as they go into these hairpins.
Yeah, coming into the hairpins, InSoo taking some nice lines, able to pass HyunSu there. Now it's JiMin and NEAL ahead of him, and we were talking about this earlier. NEAL only needs a 1st place finish and then a pretty mediocre finish to actually send us to that ace match. And with a collision there!
Oh,
that's gonna buy
InSoo
a little bit of time, and now InSoo and JiMin in 1 and 2.
InSoo should have an opportunity to overtake, and he is going to be able to. He actually bumps JiMin out on that 2nd bump, and now he's in position. He just has to close to the corner. He's gonna maintain his speed, and InSoo with the 1st place finish he absolutely needed to catch up on the leaderboard. Meanwhile, NEAL got knocked down all the way to 5th place, so we're not quite that close to wrapping up the solo matches just yet.
No, NEAL only getting 3 more points there with that 5th place finish means we will have guaranteed at least 2 more tracks, as they only get 10 to finish. So 10 with a 1st place finish, excuse me. So all these racers now have a little bit more time to start closing the distance, and with InSoo now picking up 10 points with that 1st place, he's starting to get up there, man.
Yeah, he's tied right now with
tie.
World. Yeah, he's tied with 50 points up against World, and like you mentioned, I mean, NEAL at only 69, we have minimum 2 more tracks, even if NEAL was to get 1st place in this next race. So now the real battle has to be focused between World, InSoo, and then Cool, of course, still close behind with 48. He did lose a point coming in 8th place on Construction Chaos, but I mean, he could very easily catch up, and we're going to see the first lap here where everyone just kind of had to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to aggressively overtake. But look at InSoo. He waits for everyone to just bump out. He just says, well, I know the route I'm taking. And then he takes it again, just straight. He doesn't try to play attack or defense.
Yeah, and then NEAL with that small hiccup there. I don't know if it was JiMin that actually forced him into the wall, or if it was NEAL just trying to take a more greedy line and try to close this one out in 2 tracks. But nope, at the end of the day, it's going to be NEAL falling all the way back into, what, 4th, 5th place? That's going to guarantee at least 2 more tracks. So we have a tie right now in 2nd place between World and InSoo. Any one of these guys can advance to meet NEAL in the ace match final. Let's find out who it's going to be. We're getting closer. World Tour Rio de Janeiro.
And we're off. Of course, we are now entering round 13, so we're going to start to repeat these tracks as we cycle through. InSoo choosing Rio de Janeiro as his track pick as he vies for an opportunity to get into that top 2 finish. He did have a relatively good performance earlier for most of the track when we were racing on it before. And World, I mean, this is that rivalry right now to get into the top 2 finish between these 2 racers.
This is the battle. It's InSoo and World. They're tied at 50 points apiece as they desperately want to reign a championship up. Keep in mind, this is InSoo's last solo match chance before going to the military. He's never lifted up the trophy here in Kart Rider before. He would love to do it now. He's fighting for his tournament life here. And NEAL once again in first place, pulling out of the pack. But keep in mind, it's World, it's Cool, it's InSoo who we really have to pay attention to here.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're guaranteed at least one more track. World gets bumped right off of the little hiccup there. And now he's going to drop all the way down to 8th. He is not in contention for the top 4 at all as he's lost so much speed. And InSoo and Cool, they have to recognize this. Now they're just vying against each other. NEAL, just as long as he gets even into second place, he's going to feel okay, but he's now going for first as we enter 400 meters.
Yep, NEAL going for first place. We'll get it once again, but InSoo and Cool battling neck and neck, and it will be Cool who finishes in second. InSoo actually all the way down in 5th, losing a lot of momentum there at the finish line. So that's only going to be a handful of points going his way. Meanwhile, Cool, who is 2 points behind World and InSoo at 48, is going to move up to, I think, hold on to second place unequivocally.
55. Yeah, 55 here for Cool and 53 for InSoo. So it's still close.
It's very close.
It's still very close, but the thing is I mean, InSoo, he kind of took a bit of a wider drift there in the last corner. And NEAL sets another record, by the way. But
8 records, 8 out of 12.
That's insane.
And we can only assume that we have one more track now with NEAL 1 point away from forcing the ace match. And so, I mean, Cool at 55, InSoo at 53, World and JiMin also at 49. Any of these racers, if they're able to get first place, they might be setting themselves up for that 1v1 match against the only global player here in the KDL Preseason 1, NEAL.
Yeah, InSoo is in that position. I think you called it out correctly, where the only way to really feel safe is to get first place. Even then, he's not guaranteed to take over Cool just yet. Because of course Cool will still be able to get some of the points. You know, Cool, if he comes to second, he will be able to do that, but we'll see how that lines up as we go to our next track. It's going to be round 14 on Desert Ancient Aqueducts.
Here we go, round 14. As we continue on our journey to 80 points, NEAL only 1 point away from sending us to that ace match in a battle now between Cool and InSoo to see who will be able to meet him there. Keep in mind, a win here for either of these racers should clinch them into that ace match final against NEAL. Neck and neck already. InSoo in first place, HyunSu right behind him, and Cool right behind him as well in third. I mean, this is so close.
Anything's possible, and InSoo, if he gets that first place, even if Cool gets second, InSoo will be able to overtake him with that 1 point. So that's the story right now. And NEAL, here's the thing, he just has to get into top 6, right? He just needs that 1 extra point. So NEAL, I mean, he's already behind. He's not going to try to greed it too much yet. Of course, we'll see in the later portion of the track. If he finds an opening, NEAL's not a player to let that go. But right now, InSoo and Cool, meanwhile, HyunSu staying ahead of him, just hoping that maybe he'll have more of a chance, but he gets knocked out. And now it's back to the rivalry between InSoo and Cool.
Oh, this is a 1v1 right now between InSoo and Cool, it feels like, as HyunSu's trying to close the distance. But whoever wins this race between InSoo and Cool, should they finish first and second, whoever finishes first will meet NEAL in the finals. Should NEAL get that at least 1 point, and NEAL right now in 4th. Oh, collision there. InSoo falls to 4th. Cool now in first place. InSoo has to play catch up, but NEAL out of nowhere coming in a second.
That's the thing, NEAL, he's having to wait for that opening, and he's just going to be able to find it right now. So pretty much we're guaranteed to end the track unless NEAL somehow crashes into every wall coming up forward. And InSoo, he's got such a long way, because now he's got NEAL in between him and Cool. InSoo wants to get to that top 2, but Cool's starting to run away.
Oh, NEAL in first place right now.
NEAL with the spin turn as well.
Oh, Cool just has to pass InSoo. 500 meters left to go, Chobra.
And InSoo now trying to get past NEAL first, but NEAL says, I'm sorry, I still have my own stats to fight for as well. And Cool, can he hold on to it? It's going to be NEAL, Cool, and InSoo falling to 4th. And that means it should be a NEAL, Cool ace match in the solo finals of KDL Preseason 1.
A tremendous showing there from InSoo, but just so short of that top 2 finish. And NEAL, the global player here, with another stunning victory. Another first place win. I mean, the momentum behind this guy right now, absolutely insane. And I setting another record here on Ancient Aqueducts. As, you know, I gotta say, it's solo match. It just feels like NEAL is the man to beat right now.
Absolutely.
Here in the KDL Preseason. 89 points in total. Cool with 62 will secure that top 2 spot to go into the best of 5 ace match versus NEAL. InSoo, I mean, this is his last dance here in solo match. You can see the emotion on these racers. I mean, it's a heartbreaking moment. I can see him laughing about it, but this is really his last chance before going to the military. And I mean, who knows what the landscape will look like 2 years from now, whether he will be able to regain form and compete yet again.
I mean, of course, we've had that happen, right? HyunSu, of course, kind of re-entered the scene after going to military service and coming back here for KDL Preseason 1, but it's always tough, and like you said, State, you just never know, right? There's going to be newer competition, there's going to be newer players, the game is going to continue to evolve, the meta will change, and unfortunately, as much as we would have all loved to see InSoo make a fairy tale run here in his last chance to lift the solo trophy, for now he will have to enter mandatory military service without ever lifting a solo match trophy, which the reason we emphasize this, if you haven't been following it, is because InSoo's lifted so many team trophies, right? And he's such an incredible player. He's been in so many Final 8s, he's been in so many Final 2s, and yet he's never had that chance, and he's denied once again today, as NEAL and Cool will now be the main characters of Preseason 1 here at KDL.
And NEAL versus Cool should be an absolutely stunning solo match. I mean, best of 5 between these two guys, the two best racers here in solo preseason. Cool fighting back. He was only middle of the pack coming into the last couple of tracks, but just consistently able to get podiums, to get track wins, and climb up the standings to get 62 points in total. And I cannot wait to head to the Ace Match Trevor. It's going to be so exciting here. What a day it already has been for the KDL.
I mean, 14 rounds here in the Final 8 to determine the first two. And yeah, like you said, Cool, he did have a relatively rough start, right? We kicked off the entire Final 8 here on Factory Facility 5, and Cool just not able to get many points for the first 4 tracks, barely getting up to around 12 points after track 5. And even then, he wasn't in the top 4 on the leaderboard. And then he's able to continuously shoot forward by getting into first, second repeatedly. And now he enters the Final 2.
I mean, this has really been Cool's MO throughout the entire KDL preseason solo matches. He starts off slow, and then he gets hot. And when he gets hot, he's very hard to beat. I mean, all these last tracks going neck and neck with even NEAL. So I think it's going to be a very even match once we get to that Ace match. It should be a lot of fun to watch.
Oof. Yeah, I'm so curious what those track selections will look like as well. Now, when we enter the Ace match, because it is a best of 5, of course, NEAL's going to have the first priority. But after that, the loser of the previous track will get their selection. So kind of a comeback mechanic to try to challenge the person who won the previous track. And I mean, maybe we go all the way down to the 5th track, right? Maybe it's a 3-2 finish.
We
can dream.
But you got to be worried here for Cool. I mean, maybe you get loser's pick, but NEAL has the track record on pretty much every single track here in solo match. I think 8 now after today. Coming into today with 7 out of 12. So it's a dangerous situation here for Cool. Even if he loses tracks, I mean, what are you going to pick? It's so difficult.
Well, and then the other thing is again, when NEAL doesn't have that many racers around him to contest him, to force and pressure him into these fights, that's when he really shines, right? I mean, we joke about him playing his own time attack mode here in solo matches, but that is where he's, absolutely best. And you can say, well, isn't that the true for everyone? I mean, I would actually say someone like InSoo, he actually thrives off of having opponents to kind of bounce off of and play aggressively. And NEAL says, no, now it's a 1v1. He doesn't have to worry about his opponents too much. He just has to focus on his own race.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see too many Ace matches with NEAL over the course of the team match part of this season, so I'm not exactly sure how he's going to shape up here in a 1v1. But I mean, some of the creative builds and lines that we've seen him take.
Oh, we saw some earlier, right?
I mean, not just
540.
Yeah, I mean, that was just absolutely insane. And I wasn't even I forgot about that moment. I was thinking about jumping off and going over the railing and taking that inner line. And just the meta plays that he's able to come through with are just so phenomenal. I mean, the Korean community has been calling him a genius basically since he came over from the global scene to compete in the original kart rider here in Korea, and he royal roaded that. He royal roaded in his home country, and now here in KDL, I mean, it is only the preseason. We haven't really gotten to the regular season, but it is, in a sense, a new beginning, and a victory here, it kind of does almost feel like a royal road, because eventually we will have our first ever kart rider drift champion.
Yeah, now just the reason we emphasize that it's preseason is because when we're kind of looking at the overall player careers, it's not an official season, so it doesn't rack up in terms of like records and what was your highest placing, things like that. But again, it is a new start, and that seems to be where NEAL feels most comfortable, and maybe that comes from the fact that, again, he's an innovator, right? So when everyone else is still having question marks, or maybe they're already so used to their own form, right, their own meta, NEAL kind of says and comes in and says, no, we're going to change how we look at this game. We're going to change how we look at the tracks. And right now, he's looking to do the same here in Kart Rider Drift.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic to watch this guy work. I mean, he's won almost half of the tracks that he's raced in solo match, not just today, but over the course of the entire tournament. I think something like 40, 45% of tracks in total, which, I mean, you think about that, like, if you were doing just 1v1s and you were winning 45%, that's still pretty good. You're going against the ace of any team, but you're doing this in 8-player lobbies. And then we also think of NEAL as the kind of guy that thrives in situations where he doesn't have to, you know, body block somebody else. He doesn't have to collide too much, where he's able to take those creative lines. And so in a 1v1 situation, you have to think that that advantage for him, that skill, it's going to be even wider. But at the same time, Cool, I mean, keep in mind, we were almost writing him off at the beginning because World had such a hot start. And Cool was kind of struggling there towards the bottom of the pack in terms of the standings. And over the past couple of tracks, just nothing but wins and second places and podium finishes. If he's not getting podium, he's getting top 4.
Yeah, and we should note, I mean, Cool, if you look at his overall career, now he is a very storied player, right? He was the first one after HyunSu, the emperor of the original kart rider, to get 5 grand prizes here in solo match, lift the trophy 5 times in Kart Rider League. He was the next one to kind of do that after HyunSu, so clearly a very talented racer. But again, here in Kart Rider Drift, as you mentioned several times, State, the story has been, well, you look like you need some time to warm up. Now, the good news is it was first to 80 points, so he had a bit more time.
Yeah.
And it comes into play. He's able to enter the final 2. And we'll see if he can lift that trophy. It's him versus NEAL as we get ready for the ace match. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
출발했습니다.
여보세요?
여보 아닌데요?
여보? 혹시나 해서 말하는 건데 상대한테 쫄고 들어가는 사람은 없겠지? 이겨가지고 보여주자고 우리.
양 팀의 뱀픽이 좀 기다리고 있는 상황이 되겠습니다.
빠꼼시 병마를 픽할게 그냥 바로.
그냥 해? 하던 대로 해.
어? 개꿀. 개꿀지? 4인공해 얘들아?
하고 싶은 거 해. 네.
뭐란 거야? 원래 이 픽이 궤도 아니면 그 3인공이었어.
하자.
3인공. 근데 저희 4인공 픽할게요. 4인공까지
해줬어.
나이스.
나이스.
이제 아이템점 뱀픽도 합니다. 네.
근데 우리 상대로 강남을 안 할 것 같은데? 우리 강남 거의 100% 최근 소명동을 안 하나? 뭔가 심술할 것 같기도 하고. 괜찮지 강남.
왜냐면 앞에가 나하드맵이라 강남으로 한번 흐름 끄는 것도 나쁘지 않아.
강남 왔어. 서로 믿으면서 하자. 연애 형 화이팅.
하나 둘 셋.
네.
첫 번째 라운드의 중요성 두 번 말하면 이 밥이죠.
앞에 살짝 잘렸어 2대2.
1등 고정이다.
나온 형님 편하게 다니십시오.
한다.
예예. 2만 잡으면 좋아. 2만 잡아줘 이거.
아.
우준이 아니 그 진건이 개 막아줘.
아.
뒤에. 1고.
지었어.
나이스.
이미 4위까지 나비 녹이 따라오고 있습니다. 이렇게 아우라가 1세트를 막아버립니다.
나이스. 내가 긴장했다. 속이 좀.
괜찮아.
뒤에 이거 짜릿해다. 안돼 기다려봐. 끌어줘.
자,
살짝만 끌어줘.
끌어줘야 돼.
태경이 해봐.
말해줘.
그냥 가봐. 제발 질러.
질렀어. 천사 대기 중.
형이야.
해지 챙겨놔.
아웃으로 타. 아웃.
미안. 대기. 형 가봐.
빨리 말. 천. 이겼어.
큰일 날 뻔했다.
테레 숫자랑.
아유 긴장이 됩니다 여러분들.
즐기세요.
라스트 댄스다. 웃으면서 하자.
즐기세요.
리브 샌드박스 입장에서 가장 가능성이 높은 건 3승 기록 중인 지그재그가 가능성은 높겠고요.
야 상대 직책이야.
택시찍이에요.
그럼 우리 자연스럽게 밴 광고다.
네.
광동 프리스가 뉴욕과 아슬아슬 궤도 자체는 서로 바뀐 밴이 아닌가 싶을 정도로
모바일 1점 픽입니다.
뭐가 픽이에요? 구밀터널.
구밀터널 픽이요.
얘들아 마지막이다 생각하고 재밌게 하고 와.
네.
파이팅.
안녕. 와 크다 오늘. 아이고 와. 우렁차.
스피어가 인스의 플레이 성향을 잘 알다 보니까 라인을 잘 피하긴 했어요.
나 뒤에 흔들고 있어. 빨리 먼저 가요.
아장 빨려.
뚫렸다 나. 네. 괜찮아. 나갈게.
죽었어?
해보자. 얼마네? 이겼어. 슛.
이렇게 닐과 현수의 원투 인수 승하까지
계속 막아버렸네.
이제는 또 붙어서 두 번째 랩을 진입하고 있는 광동과 리브 샌드박스.
저가 먼저 해. 먼저 해. 밑에 사이트 타봐. 2, 3등. 2등.
상천.
나이스. 잘 뺐다. 월당에 나 밀을 생각도 해줘. 우주 미리 싸줘. 지금. 나이스. 나 먼저 갈게. 밀어줘. 뒤에.
나 못 밀어준다.
나 자연아 그냥 가도 내가 밀어줘.
오케이.
가지나.
나 넘어왔어. 뒤에 떨궈놨어 꼴찌.
볼템 없다.
해지. 그냥 가. 해지. 우주 안 맞아.
1미 주고. 먹천.
발 뺐어. 그냥 가.
갑자기 잡아갑니다 월드.
야 0.06.
그래 끝. 사막 피라미드 탐험.
파이팅.
누구요? 오! 월드와 인수.
월성 생각해보면 이거 마지막 구간 역전할 만한 타이밍이 나오는데 생각보다 라인 블로킹하기가 수월합니다. 3렙은 어떻게 될지 봐야 되겠습니다.
자 붙어가야 됩니다. 이제 월드와 인수대.
가요. 상황 여기서
가요.
라인 서로 눈치. 자
얇아요.
과연
드랩 받았을 때 없어요. 없다긴데요. 월드.
왜 이렇게 실 지민이 같다.
형한테도 그런 말 한 거야? 와 진짜 나빴다 형. 최경준.
뭐야 은택이가 마이크 안 틀렸는데?
사피 밴은 너무나 당연하고요. 왜냐면 하프를 상대가 선택했을 때 남은 게 사피 밴 맞거든요.
자 여러분 이번 픽이 4피인데 잘렸어.
네.
그러면 채굴장 남았어. 채굴장 런던 수명동굴. 3번이 채굴장이긴 해.
채굴장 가시죠.
하죠. 괜찮아?
하죠.
하죠.
네 말해봐봐.
안녕하세요. 반가워요. 잘 있어요.
민수 자고 있네. 여유롭지 그냥 아주.
야 내일 이기든 지든 쉬게 해줄 테니까 가족 사진 찍고 오늘만 좀 힘내자. 파이팅!
한 판 졌다고 당황하지 말고 얘들아 맵 5이야 5.
네.
일도 올라와야 돼요.
이번에는 인수가 7, 8위에 두 명의 선수를 묶어놓고 있기 때문에 선수권의 수적 우위를 바탕으로 가야 되는데 히어로도 잘 버티죠.
나이스.
얘네 꼬이는 중.
1등 해볼게. 제일 빨리 해봐. 나 스탑
빨려.
받았어. 가운데 둘. 나이스 터져. 버프야.
가봐 상대 팔이야. 형 가봐요. 막아놨어.
그냥 가, 그냥 가.
그냥 가.
가자. 가주겠어.
나이스.
원투가 이렇게 완성이 됩니다. 오라.
나이스. 하이파이브. 잘했어.
스나가 좁은 길이기 때문에 눌러줘야 돼요. 눌러주면서 감속을 시키면 현수가 오거든요. 믿습니다. 디라이브 마지막에 이거 멀고요. 안전하게. 1점 원투.
이거 순위로 해보자.
2파 얘들아 2파.
아 먼저 써.
들리면 1파. 우주 챙겨 뒤에.
나 이렇게. 나 오른쪽 편.
야 잠깐만.
실드.
야 우주 나한테 왔어.
백미 한번 쓸게 이거. 백미 샀어.
지금 대기해줘.
뛰었어. 실드 뛰었어.
빠 깎게 오른쪽. 빠 먹였어 1등. 뛰었어 2등.
순위로 해보자. 어제는 잡히긴 하고.
잡히긴 해.
순위로 하면
2파 깔게 여기.
다리 깔아봐.
깔았어. 재영 거리 돼. 2등 팔이. 들렸어.
나 미사일 떠.
나 부스 셀할 때 말해줘. 직선에 짤게 직선.
쟤.
아니야.
너가 아프게. 지금 부스터야 지민아. 1파 아프게 줬어.
됐어.
나 빨리 썼어. 들었다.
나 우주와 끝까지.
끝까지
순위 타줘.
이제 빼지 마. 나 죽었어.
나줘. 우주와 끝까지 해야 돼. 우리 챙겨줘.
짜거리 안 나와.
우리 챙겨줘. 잠깐만.
나 팔이 맞을 거 항상
우주와 끝까지.
빨리 가. 괜찮아. 그냥 가. 우주 두 개야.
찬.
빨리 가.
우주 계속 와. 부스 떴다.
당길 게 없습니다. 당길 게.
이러면 지민이 들어옵니다.
잘 끊었다.
순위로 하자.
잘 끊었다.
우리 또 천사 없기 때.
네.
실드로 버텨줄게. 라인 막아줄게 다음. 팔이 온다.
번개도 돼. 지금 할게.
맞겠다.
맞나?
근데
맞아.
천사 있을 거야. 근데.
나 짜보
아
먹었어.
3파 줄게 3파.
짜보 나 혼자임.
들었어 3등. 발 살짝 맞아. 팔이 한번
있어. 나 대줄게 이거.
천천히 해봐.
나 다원이 볼게.
나 잡아 아니야.
나 돌고 짠다.
다운이 봐.
나 한수 빨렸어.
용준아 다운이 봐봐. 짤게. 질러.
네.
나야.
나 짜상 왜 있어? 중간으로 가.
상대 빨리 말.
빨렸어. 알자.
소고시 빨리 말. 상대 빨리 말.
판 빨렸어. 알.
파이팅.
문제 없습니다. 시즌.
그렇지.
야 김다원.
정현주 알키
천사
좋았어.
먹어주잖아.
잘했어 알키.
애결 트랙이 결정이 됐군요. 애결 트랙은 빌리지 고가의 질주입니다.
어떤데? 먼저 넌 나갈 수가 없어. 줄안 나가면 진짜 안 나가. 근데 내가 나가면 집에서 떨어지잖아. 근데 나 솔직히 부담돼가지고.
결승전에 진출하게 만든 선수는 현수와 현우입니다. 출발했습니다. 굉장히 위험한 라인을 서로 간에 방향을 두들.
야 이거는 히어로 큰일 날 뻔했는데 현수가 이거를 꺼내줬네요.
드래프트 타이밍이
오,
맞아서
이거죠.
계산해야 됩니다.
자, 한번 맞고
근데 거리가 이거
되나요?
집중해야죠.
현수가 막아요. 현수가 막아요. 부스터.
근데 드랩이 있습니다. 그리고 오른쪽 라인 멀어요.
부스터가 있죠. 현수가 근데 현우 못 막아내요.
Welcome back, everyone, to the KDL Preseason 1. 8 racers entered today for the solo match finals, and we are now down to the last 2. My name is William Cho, joined by State, and we've got NEAL from Live Sandbox and Cool from the Guangdong Freaks to go into a best-of-5 ace match.
Yeah, this should be a fantastic match. Cool looking really strong in those last couple of tracks, but NEAL just winning it feels like almost everything, at least half of the maps. and felt like he was picking up the match win. And this is going to be a cool preview as well of the team match finals that's taking place tomorrow between Kwangdong Freaks and Live Sandbox.
I mean, yeah, just imagine, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but imagine like tomorrow goes to another ace match and it's these two players again. Yeah. They have to face each other again, but obviously that's all tomorrow. Today, while they do, of course, have their team banners behind them, it is about their individual careers. And while it is still only the preseason one, right, we're not going to leave any records here before the official season, but it's still a good taste of, all right, who really is at the top currently? Who's leading the pack for Kart Rider Drift?
Yeah, coming into preseason one, our production team interviewed a lot of the players and asked them, their thoughts on the game, their thoughts on other players, how they were stacking up, who improved the most, and a lot of people said that Cool has improved the most as a speed racer from Kart Rider League 2 KDL. He was already great, and he's proving it true today. It's going to be him versus NEAL here in the ace match, a best of 5, winner takes all. I'm so excited, Trobra.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these two players, these two racers, they've shown us so many great moments, both in team and solos, and NEAL definitely looks a lot more relaxed. I think he's just feeling that he's in his element since the beginning today, right? We kicked things off with him taking first place 4 tracks in a row at the beginning of the final 8. He was able to continue that track selection for a long time, eventually closing it out at the maximum 89 points. He just had to cross 80 to end the round of 8. And now, sitting here facing his challenger, Cool, in the ace match. Cool needed a bit of a warm-up, and looks like we're getting ready for track number 1. It's a best of 5 NEAL selection as we get ready to crown our potential first winner at the KDL. It's Mind Winding Slopes.
And here we go, round 1 of this best of 5 ace match between NEAL and Cool. The winner will be the KDL Preseason 1 champion. We're getting so close to the end here, Trobra, and NEAL already off to a tremendous start.
Yeah, and we already saw Cool just trying to pressure him on those early turns, because here's the thing. I mean, this is one of those difficult, tight tracks where if you keep the lead, it's going to be real tough for your opponents to overtake you unless you kind of try to force a collision or pressure you into that position. And NEAL is starting to run away with this, of course. Distance-wise, there is still a possibility, but here's the other thing. NEAL and Live Sandbox players have always enjoyed this track. Meanwhile, Cool and Kwangdong Freaks, they've tried to avoid it if they can in team matches as well.
Yeah, so a little bit of metagaming here by NEAL. Not only is it a track that he has the solo speed record on, but also one that, a little bit less comfortable here for Cool. So NEAL, he's off to a great start. As we're getting closer and closer to the end here, this tight turn will be really hard for Cool to pass. He just has to buy his time, continue to draft, close the distance, and coming to this hairpin turn, NEAL taking it really tight, not giving Cool any space, but Cool there with the inner line, able to pass him. NEAL gonna see if he can change hands.
Ooh, both of them just slowing down, not wanting to get wiped out entirely, but Cool continued to stay ahead of the boost gauge. That's what allowed him to take the lead here right in the last section of the hairpins. And Cool's gonna cross the finish line first as well.
An unexpected result there, man, coming down the stretch. I was thinking that NEAL had it, but Cool with some nice collisions and excellent boost timing, able to really get the most momentum possible to win track number 1. And keep in mind, I mean, NEAL, he got first place. He was the first racer to 80 points. That was his track selection. That was his choice. It was not only a track that he has the record on, but metagaming Cool and the Freaks a little bit. And now it is loser's choice here in the best of 5 ace match. Cool winning track number 1. NEAL will be able to choose the next track. And sorry, what were you pointing out there?
Cool had 7 drafts in that race. I mean, he had so many times just to catch up and overtake him, and yet he was constantly managing. So basically, he was able to use his drafts to save his boost gauge so that he had more entering into that hairpin. Now looking at a couple other players who did get knocked out from that final 8 ding there, trying to hide his face from the camera, and it looked like HyunSu as well. But now, NEAL, what is going to be the next pick? The loser gets to pick the track.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that NEAL has the track record on the majority of the tracks here in solo speed. So there's a lot of different options for him, a lot of things that are comfortable. We'll see what the choice is going to be. It's actually going to be Village Boom Hill Tunnel coming through as the pick here for NEAL. Let's see if he can tie this one up 1-1. NEAL versus Cool here in the best of 5 grand finals.
And we're off. NEAL now on the back foot behind 0-1. Decides to just go for the left side so he can also manage his boost gauge. As both players right now, of course, in that opening section of this track, just making sure that they don't fall behind in building up their gauge here.
Yeah, just a little bit of a role reversal from the previous track. Right now it's Cool who has just a hair of an edge here on NEAL. So maybe NEAL can kind of employ a similar tactic to what Cool did last time. And actually hold that thought as he just wants to fight right now. I was thinking maybe he'll sit back. He'll try to just use those drafts and save his boost gauge a little bit.
Yeah,
to do what Cool did previously to get the win, but NEAL is a fighter, man. He wants to be at first place. Go for that big collision.
I like it. The hard stops against him and then using that to boost back forward. And he's just constantly making sure that, Cool, even if you're ahead in boost, I will stop to block you. That's why he enters there. Can he overtake him? No, but right on the bridge, NEAL, does he show us that build again? No, he's just going to play it safe this time.
Yeah, I don't think he had quite the speed that he needed to actually execute that turn. And so now it's once again NEAL trailing Cool as we come into these turns. And
Oh, no, NEAL!
NEAL with a big mistake there is going to have to make up a lot of ground now on Cool with not a lot of track left to go, Trobra. We'll see if he's able to do it right now. Cool basically in time trial mode, and NEAL's going to boost as best he can, but with 200 meters left to go, there's no chance. And now Cool on match point here against NEAL, going up 2-0, one track win away from being the KDL Preseason 1 solo speed champion.
I mean, what a change of fates here. When we entered with the final 8 at the beginning of the night, NEAL just looked unstoppable, and people were saying, even just within the Korean community as well, just saying, okay, looks like NEAL, when he's popping off, no one can stop him, right? When he's boosted forward, there's just nothing that can get in his way. But Cool says, oh, just wait until I'm warmed up. I'm just getting started.
It's been his entire MO this whole preseason. Every single solo match, he starts off slow and then he gets hot. And it was him getting a lot of podium finishes, a lot of top 4s, top 5s, even track wins to secure his place here against NEAL in the first place. And it seems like that break did not slow him down at all, man. He's still playing as best as we've seen from him, and now just one track win away.
Oh boy, this track selection is going to have to be crucial here. Now that was a track, I mean, both because of the clever build that NEAL has, and NEAL, I mean, even choosing to play aggressive on those tighter turns in the later half of the track to try to get ahead and use the stops against Cool, and Cool not fazed by it at all, is able to maintain the lead. Of course, NEAL, I mean, the big thing came down to those 90-degree turns. He runs into the corner, but now we're going to go to round 3. Another attempt here from NEAL to try to catch up as we enter Desert Ancient Aqueducts.
Here we go, track 3, Desert Ancient Aqueducts. It is do or die time now for NEAL on match point. Cool, one track win away from being your KDL Preseason 1 solo speed champion. NEAL off to a great start with some fantastic tight lines through these opening stages here on Aqueducts.
Yeah, I mean, with the aggressive cuts there right off the bat, both of them trying to build up their gauge. Now, Cool has been looking a lot better at just really sneaking in these slice drifts, you know, the shorter versions of those cuts to try to keep up in boost gauge, and now just making sure that he's able to maintain his speed at the top of the hill here. NEAL just trying to play catch up.
Yep, NEAL able to squeak into first place right now as we near the end of lap number 1. And, you know, Cool, though, he's been very comfortable in these positions throughout this entire best of 5 where, you know, he's just out of drafting range from NEAL, and then he just waits for his time to strike. He waits for NEAL to give him some kind of opening to actually pass him closer and closer to the finish line. And, I mean, even there, he's holding on to these nitros. He's playing them very conservatively. He's not gunning to pass NEAL right this second. He's waiting for a pivotal moment where he can clutch out the win.
Yeah, and right now, just looking at the boost gauges, NEAL using everything he has to try to stay ahead. But look at this, Cool is constantly getting in like 1 or 2 extra slices on these straightaways. Just so, and he tries to bump NEAL, but NEAL, good recovery and defense off the wall, and Cool misses that opportunity, but he's not out of it just yet.
That was an excellent body block there by NEAL, and NEAL right now holding on to the nitro a little bit ahead of nitro gauge. So Cool's really gonna have to draft, close the distance right now, and boost as best he can. He was able to pass NEAL previously on turns such as this on other tracks. Will he be able to do it again? We're getting close to the finish line now, Trobra.
Oh, Cool's timed it so well. The draft cooldown should be coming into play here as they enter the last section of the map. Here it comes. He boosts off of him, but NEAL blocks him right out. And now they enter the straightaway, both of them still with the boost gauge. If NEAL doesn't hit a wall, Cool doesn't. No, he gets one more draft right as they enter the final 90-degree turns.
Wow, what a moment here for Cool as he is going to sweep the best of 5 ace match 3-0, and you can really tell that he calmed his nerves after track number 1 as he will be your KDL Preseason 1 champion. Cool representing the Guangdong Freaks. The victor here against Live Sandbox's NEAL.
Oh my God, an incredible race. I mean, I thought he was out after he wasn't able to get that draft to overtake on the straightaway, but he just keeps, stays calm and collected, understands that the cooldown's gonna come back after the straightaway through the water, and they're going to still be up against each other, uses it to overtake NEAL in the final 90 degrees, and NEAL, despite the explosive start, runs out of gas in the best of 5 ace match.
Yeah, and it feels like Cool just kind of played NEAL's strategy against him there. NEAL loves to be the aggressor. He loves to be out in front.
I love Cool just joking, of course, preseason 1, so not a big trophy for him just yet to lift it up here.
Oh, I love it. The brief look of confusion, and like, this is my trophy, my fist is my trophy.
Well, he just rips it out of the stage on that cardboard.
But going back to the point that I was making earlier, I mean, I love that play from Cool, just letting NEAL sit comfortably in first place throughout most of these tracks. I mean, if you were to compare the time spent in first place in track 1, track 2, track 3, I guarantee you, NEAL's ahead of Cool the majority of the time. Every single track. So. And Cool, he just played conservatively. He made it so NEAL had to exert all this effort, all this boost to stay ahead of Cool, who was drafting behind him. And then Cool, just every single track, he waits until the right moment to get that final draft in, that final boost in, and then pass NEAL. And I thought, again, in track number 3, I thought that he was out of it. I thought that NEAL with the body blocking was going to be able to force a track number 4, but Cool just played it so smart, so safe.
Yeah, I mean, really what happens there at the end, right, as you enter the 9 degrees, maybe we'll get a replay in the highlight package, maybe at the end of the show as well, but NEAL, I believe, slows down to, avoid the collision. We called that out on the cast as well, but that means that he was trying to rely on stopping against Cool, right, drawing out that body block, and Cool just says, thank you for the draft. And just skirts right around him. But the level of focus that Cool has shown, and I think that's the story of Preseason 1 solo matches, is that, yes, you have the explosiveness of players like NEAL, like InSoo, even HyunSu this time, of course, coming in as the first seed, but it's really who's able to be that consistent, right, and just really focus on your final opportunities. It's going to be Cool, and that's also the reason that the entire team of Guangdong Freaks was staying as, the ranked number 1 in the team matches.
Yeah, they're conservative, they're smart, they play things as best they possibly can, and they work really well off each other. And I think we're going to get a look at the match results here from today.
I mean, it was a long one today, so let's take a look. Of course, we started with the final 8, and that's how the final, grand finals work for solo matches here, continuing in the Kartrider Drift League. At that point, NEAL, I mean, look at that finish, 89 points, the possible maximum you can get to get over that 80-point cutoff line. And Cool kind of barely catching up with 62. He was in trouble of getting knocked down by InSoo, depending on the finishes of the final track.
Yeah, he had a very slow start today. That's happened to him multiple times here over the KDL preseason, specifically in solo match. But, once he catches fire, he does not let up.
No, not at all.
Despite a 27-point differential between NEAL and Cool from first and second place, which, again, that's almost 3 track wins. It's absolutely absurd. Cool just played it so smart there in the 1v1 solo match. I mean, I love to see it. And, for InSoo and Live Sandbox, this isn't the end of the story as we quickly take a look at this 3-0 sweep there by Cool. I mean, InSoo, a little bit of a heartbreaking moment for him in 3rd place, but, at least there is tomorrow. The last dance with Live Sandbox will continue before he and Seunghan go to military service.
Yeah, so there's still more of the KDL Preseason 1 tomorrow, just kind of letting everyone know at home for that. But for today's story, I mean, sure, if you were kind of hyped up because we went all the way down to, I think it was like round 14 in the round of 8, right, to start out the finals today, and things looked like it could go anyone's way. Cool, again, barely eking into the final 2. Potentially, it might have been InSoo and NEAL today. But then he suddenly just says, all right, I've been warmed up, right? And the switch is on, and he takes the victory swiftly. And it looks like we're going to have an awards ceremony up on stage here shortly to celebrate the final finishes of our racers. But again, you look at the score and say maybe it was anticlimactic, but you look at the fashion that Cool did it in, and it's just pure art in how focused he was. And I guess the pros were right. He really has been honing his skills coming over to Kartrider Drift.
He's improved so much coming into KDL. winning preseason 1. I mean, the future is very bright right now for Pool as well as the Guangdong Freaks as they look to add on to his solo match victory with a team match victory tomorrow. And now the runner-up, NEAL, coming to collect his second place prize. It was a tremendous tournament for him, and solos winning almost half of all the tracks that he played in. I mean, he's going to be feeling a little bit sad about getting second place, but really this was a tremendous performance, and I think he's going to come back next season and tighten up his play a little bit. If he can, oh, NEAL, we love you.
He's also just built up so much confidence on stage, obviously working on his Korean as well. And here's the thing, yes, it escapes him today in terms of, kind of getting that title of the first, global racer to get a first place finish here in the solo matches, but there are more opportunities. And if anything, hey, the consolation for NEAL is it's just a preseason, right?
Yeah.
This is where you're supposed to learn more about your opponents, about the meta currently in Kart Rider Drift, continue to research and hone your skills. And today he was outclassed by the eventual winner, but I'm sure NEAL will continue to steal a lot of people's hearts here in Kart Rider Drift.
He's already stolen mine. Just very likable guy. Absolutely love to see him, man. Coming out now is our Season 1 KDL Preseason 1 champion. Guangdong Freaks is cool. Just a tremendous race. Come from behind finish there in the 8-player stage of the matches today. And now the champion with a 3-0 sweep against NEAL.
Yeah, incredible career for this guy. We mentioned it earlier. He had 5 championships in the Kart Rider League. The first to do it after the Emperor Hojun reigned for so long. And then he comes into Kart Rider Drift League. He's been getting praised by his teammates and opponents. And he's now able to get another title under his belt here for preseason. Curious to see if he's able to keep that up once the official seasons go through. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the solo matches today. That's it for myself, William Cho, and State here in Preseason 1. But of course, KDL not done just yet. We will be coming back tomorrow with the team match finals between Live Sandbox and the Guangdong Freaks. We'll see you tomorrow.